Tonight's going to be a night of many different topics because I'm kind of all over the place with my research. I'm all over the place with the articles I tend to look into and the things I tend to talk about. But I talked yesterday, although I have talked to the YouTube user, and we did have a reasonable conversation, and they're going to do a follow-up video to what they're doing. But I dislike this idea that, oh, if you're talking about rape and rape culture in America, you only care about first world rape. You don't actually care about rape that's going on around the world. Despite the fact that on my old channel, I talked at great length about corrective rape in South Africa. You know, the kind of rape where guys think that lesbians just need a good dicking to understand that they're just confused, or they don't understand that cock is good, that cock is the answer to everything, and therefore if we traumatize these women with our cocks, that will make them understand what a cock feels like and how good a cock feels like, because cock is the answer to everything, right? And because, you know, a woman can't be bisexual, she can't be gay, she can't be a lesbian, which I guess is the better term to use in that case. She can't be anything but straight, so she's playing hard to get if she's playing that she's a lesbian, and so the only solution to this is corrective rape. I've talked about the rape of young girls in South Africa. Well, not South Africa, excuse me, just in certain rural parts of Africa, parts where they believe, thanks to the lunacy that can be the anti-science foundations of medicine that they sometimes have in certain parts of Africa, that they get the idea that the only cure for AIDS is hymen blood. And the younger the hymen, the fresher, the stronger the medicine. Let that sink in to you for a little bit. Then tell me again, I only care about first world problems and first world rapes. I've talked about, I'm one of the few people at all who's even gone anywhere close to male rape and also male domestic abuse, because in this country especially, women are not seen as aggressors. I have a friend who lost his military career because his girl was beating on him. He called the cops, and even though he was the one with bruises, he was the one who went to jail because she said, oh, he hit me. And because of her nice little allegations that apparently the military cares more about domestic violence than they care about rape, although I'm glad they care about domestic violence, but when we have the idea that only men are the aggressors, you know, just like only men can be rapists and only men can be child rapists, which is also equally not true, then you start to see this problem where there is an unbalance. But it's oftentimes an unbalance on parts of this, which is, yes, partially a first world issue, but guess what? That's because we're all targets here, you know? If I campaign too much for the stuff of Africa and start pulling people away from the ideas of what's happening to men and women in the first world country, that can affect whether, you know, what I am, what kind of status I have in terms of society, what kind of jobs I can hold, who I can marry, where I can marry, not to mention how you know, these sex laws can be used very oftentimes against teenage boys and can oftentimes, depending on the state, ruin their life for life if they happen to have sex with another girl of their same age, and the parents happen to want to press charges and bring the law into a situation where law need not get into. You know, I've also talked now and again about some of the various major rape cases, including trying to take the other side of things when it is necessary, such as the times at which women in the country where this woman was gang raped and died in intensive care in her hospital, and no arrests were made of the rapists, even though apparently some of the rapists' identities had been known, and how women were calling for these rapists to be cut into 3 pieces, because they're very precise here, and publicly displayed for what they are doing. Now, while I think to a degree that would kind of get a message across, I feel it is still the same way, the wrong way to go about things, because then if we go to that barbaric place, how are we any better than the rapists that we down in this case? So, pardon me if I'm one of the few people, myself and user ujames1978, whose channel has been oftentimes flagged for speaking out against the sexual problems of first, second, and third world countries, and have people from those very countries try to silence him because they don't like the fact that people like himself and myself dare to even say that, oh, hey, this isn't cool, and this is harming people in this way, or this is harming both genders in that way. Excuse me if I'm a little afraid of what first world issues and laws, and especially sex laws and rape legislation that sometimes goes in the right direction for victims and sometimes goes in the complete opposite direction and can put all us guys, remember, we're all Schrodinger's rapists after all in this first world country, on the hot seat. When we have people like Rebecca Watson talking about how threatened she felt when a man, who she admits politely asked her to coffee in conversation, and could have meant coffee and conversation, made her feel unsafe, uneasy, that she could feel him sexually objectifying her with his eyes, and that that he must have been having sexually oppressive, no, not must have been, she actually made the positive assertion that that this gentleman was sexually oppressing her with his thoughts, even though he didn't communicate any of his thoughts beyond asking if she would like to have coffee and a conversation. Now, again, I talked about how maybe the elevator wasn't the best place to have it, but let's be completely honest. This could have been anywhere. It could have been in a hallway. It could have been with 5 feet between them, talking on either side of the hallway. Every part of that could be considered wrong. And if some of the major fringe elements, the radical femmes and all those, get their ways, then we're going to institute this. We've already got male hysteria in the first world country. Most of it having to deal with pedophilia, because the news organizations, as I've demonstrated in my playlist, links down on my channel, that we've turned this all into a witch hunt. But yet, we care when the guys do it, we don't care when the women do it. We tell society, oh, we care about your pain, especially if you're a girl who was corrupted by evil man and his evil phallic symbol of oppression that swings freely betwixt the legs. We're all too quick for that one. But if a guy says, my mom dressed me up like a woman and used to touch me inappropriately while sticking things in my rectum, we're like, oh, she was confused. Let's give her a little slap on the wrist, and we're not going to worry about giving you any therapy because we don't care. We don't care about your pain. We only care about it when it's the little girls, and so on and so forth and so on. This is one of the few times that this kind of phrasing is apt. We don't tell we don't tell men not to get into abusive relationships. We tell them never, under any circumstance, not even self-defense, are they ever to lay a hand on a woman. And then we have these other outsider guys who look at people like me who've come from a battered relationship and say, what are you, fucking stupid? Pardon my language. Why didn't you hit her? Well, myself and many, many men out there, some of whom are actually a lot physically stronger than myself, have been subject to this. And we feel that we are bound, that if we are stuck, if we are literally trapped by the person who is battering us, and they have enough weight on us to prevent us from going anywhere, that they can form a solid wall, they don't understand that there is no walking away, there is no escape. And then when you factor in the fact that if you dare lay a hand on this woman, it doesn't matter how many years, how many broken bones, how many anything this woman has gotten to you, you are now the aggressor, and you, my friend, are going to get in trouble. So it's not just that we tell men not to hit women under no circumstance, although, they're calling for equality, right? It's that we actually curtail laws around this to where oftentimes you're the one who gets in trouble. When you're not being laughed at, when you're not being ridiculed, although personally, I don't care when people do it to me because that's just society. But I care when it's happening to everybody else, because this also permeates into when men get raped, whether it's man on man or man on woman rape. And yes, contrary to popular belief, sometimes men just don't want to have sex. And apparently when we say no, it's not just that it's meaningless, it's that it's non-existent. We have no right to say no. We are an always horny, always ready to go penis. And there is where you have male disposability, which also works both ways in some of these third world countries.